This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe birthday boy. I'm the birthday boy for today, December the 25th. It was a Christmas birthday. It's not Ricky Henderson. I did him last year. This guy is now 76 years old, but he's a great fullback star. Played for the Dolphins and the Giants, and he was actually in the World Football League. He actually was supposed to be on a World Football League team in Canada, but I'll get to that when I talk about it. Anyway, he was part of the Dolphins dynasty in the 70s when he back-to-back Super Bowls, and was actually named later the MVP in 73 at Super Bowl 8, I suppose. Yeah. He's a legend. He's still the all-time leading rusher in Miami history. One comeback of the year, and then actually has his number retired by the Dolphins. It's number 39. It is Larry Csonka. So Larry Csonka was Hungarian, and raised by his Hungarian family. Csonka, after high school, was recruited by Clemson, Iowa, Vanderbilt, and Syracuse, and he chose Syracuse. He would be a middle linebacker before turning into a fullback, and had many school records that were held by the greats like Ernie Davis, Jim Nance, not the broadcaster, Nance, Nance, Floyd Little, and Jim Brown. I mean, to usurp those four guys, that's amazing. But anyway, Csonka could have went to Clemson, Iowa, or Vanderbilt, but no, he went to Syracuse. Should have went to Vanderbilt. In his first 3 seasons at Syracuse, Csonka did pretty well for himself and became 5th in the nation rushing in 1967. The AFL were desperate and took Larry Csonka with the first pick of their draft. No run-over pick, but the 8th player in that 68 draft. So he signed with Miami and all that. I don't know who had the NFL rights to him, but he drafted. But anyway, he would have a 3-year contract, signing bonus of $34,000 at the time, which it would be equivalent to $265,000 today's dollars. $120,000 in salary. Anyway, his career got off to a shaky start and all that because of concussions and all that. However, after 1970, he actually went through 4 seasons without missing a game. He was looking pretty good. He was a power runner and all that. Csonka was called the fullback, which usually you don't get a lot of carries and all that. It's the running backs and all that. In fact, his nose would be permanently deformed, because he broke it 10 or more times. Anyway, it was critical and all that. He was one of the toughest players of all time. One coach even said, when Csonka goes on safari, the Lions roll up their windows. The Dolphins were good with the rushing attack and all that. Bob Greasy was a decent quarterback, but yeah, the running backs were huge. Csonka and Mercury Morris were a combination. In fact, in 1972, when the Dolphins set the record for most yards in a season by a team, Csonka put up 1,100 plus yards, and Mercury Morris put up 1,000 yards, making them the first 1,000-yard rushing duel in NFL history. How rare is that? Well, let's see here. Rushing duels. It's only been done 7 times. Csonka and Morris were the first. 76 Steelers with Franco Harris, the late Franco Harris with Rocky Bleier. 1985, the Browns with Kevin Mack and Ernest Biner. The Falcons did it in 06 with Mark Dunn and Michael Vick, pre-dogfighting scandal. 2008 Giants, Brandon Jacobs and Derek Ward. 2009 Carolina Panthers, Jonathan Stewart and D'Angelo Williams. And 2019 Lamar Jackson with Mark Ingram. So yeah, that was huge. Anyway, he was abrasive, and the Dolphins got to 3 straight Super Bowls. Super Bowls 6, 7, and 8. Unfortunately, Super Bowl 6 was a shit show against the Cowboys. But Super Bowl 7 was when they completed the perfect season, and Super Bowl 8 was when they held the Vikings to 3 points, which was actually the best defensive effort by a Super Bowl winning team until the Pats tied that in 2019 in the shit bowl, as they call it, winning the game against the Rams 13-3. Anyway, it looked pretty good. His 5.4 yards per carry average was fantastic. Larry Csonka was actually in a off-Broadway play called Larry Csonka and the Chocolate Factory. Huh? The play didn't gain commercial success, but he got some kind of award. Anyway, it didn't matter. Csonka did what he could and all that. Csonka was the Super Bowl VIII MVP and it looked good. Csonka and Jim Kick were known for being Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. However, Larry Csonka was actually drafted in the pro draft by the World Football League, trying to ruffle the NFL's feathers and all that, kind of like what the AFL did. The weird thing was that Csonka, Jim Kick, and Paul Warfield actually signed contracts to play in the World Football League. Csonka was signed a 3-year guaranteed contract. All that. It gave the World Football League some credibility. The only problem was the money was just poor. You don't know about the World Football League, and they failed in like halfway through their second season and all that. Csonka did play for Memphis alongside Warfield and Kick, and Miami suffered through it. Of course, when I'm talking about the World Football League in Canada, I gotta say this. Because the team that they signed for was the Memphis Southmen. However, that wasn't the original case. The case was Toronto was going to have a team. The Toronto Northmen were going to be in the World Football League. Unfortunately, though, there was a problem. The Canadian politicians were up in arms because they didn't want the new World Football League team taken away from their generous CFL fan base and hated that pro leagues were going to put a team in Canada other than the CFL. So they decided to introduce a bill to prohibit other fledgling leagues to play in Canada and try to steal Canadian stuff away. They even made a bill in the Canadian government to do that. And John Bassett was upset because this bill was actually going to also take away some of his finances because Bassett was one of the most prominent men in Canada. So Bassett moved the team to Memphis and left Canada. All that. So that was just pure stupidity. But the Canadian government kind of overreacted. I guess so. Rumors were circulating that the Buffalo Bills were going to move to Toronto or even put an NFL team in Toronto, but those have passed. Anyway, Larry Csonka was a free agent by trade after the World Football League, but he decided to go to the New York Giants in 1976. It was huge and all that. Unfortunately for Csonka, he would tear knee ligaments based on Giant Stadium's artificial turf and all that. Csonka was the centerpiece of the whole Miracle the Meadowlands in 1978. The Giants were up 17-12. Looked like they were going to beat the Eagles. All the Giants had to do was basically take a knee games at match because the Eagles don't have timeouts. Unfortunately, the Giants wanted to kneel now, but offensive coordinator Bob Gibson overturned things and told Pisarcik to hand the ball off to Larry Csonka to run up the middle and kill the clock. Of course, this was the era before the quarterback kneel or victory formation was prominent. Unfortunately, Pisarcik and Csonka bobbled the handoff, and Herman Edwards, yes, that Herman Edwards, hello, you played to win the game. Won the game for the Eagles, and that got them to the playoffs. The Giants would be angry. They would fire both John McVay and Bob Gibson, and they went to a tailspin. Csonka would not play for the Giants after that year and went back to Miami. And actually did good for the Dolphins. He won Comeback Player of the Year and decided to retire after the year. So Csonka ran for 8,081 yards in his 11 NFL seasons with 64 touchdowns. He was Miami's superstar and all that. He would then do several hunting and fishing shows and a motivational speaker. Csonka was actually the analyst for American Gladiators in the 90s alongside Mike Emmerle. The Dolphins retired as number 39 in 2002. One of 10 Dolphins in the Hall of Fame. And anyway, he looked pretty good in all that. He would be producer of many things, including North to Alaska. So Csonka did a lot of weird stuff after football, but, he's still a great player. And he could have been a Toronto football player, but of course, the Foreign Act ruined it. But hey, what can you do? World Football League did fold after all. Anyway, I'm just having to do.